We are down.
All right, welcome to tonight's meeting. Today's Monday, November 13th. I'm Sabrina Dunlap. We have Ken Drum, Stephen Whitley, and Jeff Donahoe, and Thomas Lipoma cannot join us tonight. So that is our call to order. So unless, Ken, do you have anything for points of pride you'd like to say before we start?
No, why don't we just get going?
All right. So first we have administrative approval of the consent agenda.
I'll move we approve the consent agenda of November 13, 2023.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the public meeting minutes from November 6th, 2023.
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Were you not?
Well, I was in and out.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we have two non-publics. First is approval of the non-public meeting minutes from November 6th, 2023, session 1.
I'll move and note they're sealed.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, and approval of the non-public meeting minutes, November 6th, 2023, session 2.
I'll move, but I don't recall if they're sealed or not.
I think they are.
Sealed?
Oh, maybe they weren't.
They were not sealed. The second ones are not sealed.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. All right, so first for budget presentations, we have cemeteries. Welcome.
Hi. So you probably noticed that in one of our lines, we were asking for quite a bit more money than we usually do. Although we did try to soften the blow a little bit by cutting where we could, provide in-house services for the memorial gardens. So it's not basically asking for $11,000 more than we typically do for the professional services. And there's the reasoning for that was that we were told, and Gail can clarify this some more, that what we've been expending from the expendable trust fund is not sustainable. And I had done some research into what the town used to pay I believe, for all of the professional services in the past. They haven't recently, but in the fairly recent past. So we did this to at least start the conversation that what we're doing, what we're spending now, we'll spend down the expendable trust fund. Like I said, Gail can explain this some more. And that sooner or later, the town will have to start paying for more of those services. Did you want to add?
Lynn, what's the net increase?
The net
Can you tell
increase,
what
yes.
We're asking for.
Yes, the net increase is $9,310 because we did cut a couple of other lines where we could.
So, as you know, I'm Gail Kimball and I am a cemetery trustee, and I am also a new this year trustee of the trust fund, which has been very educational. So the short answer is that we have been spending between $35,000 and $40,000 a year out of expendable funds. And I will remind you, the reason we have expendable funds is there's a Cypre document saying that we can commingle the perpetual care, the income from the perpetual care funds, and we don't have to account for it. So for example, we don't have to spend the perpetual care funds that were raised from cemetery plots in Kentucky on the Kentucky Cemetery. We can commingle all of that money and spend it across the board, which is very advantageous to the historical cemetery of Hopkinton. And the reason I say that is if you look at our beautiful cemetery there are many gorgeous old trees. And one of our biggest expenses outside of lawn mowing and lawn maintenance, it's tree maintenance. So anyway, we've been spending about $35,000 to $40,000 on lawn mowing, spring cleanup, fall cleanup, cemetery,
Repairs, fence repairs.
fence, cemetery, trees.
Stone repairs.
For example, yeah, so we have a little cluster of trees now that we're looking at $4,000 to $6,000 to remove the trees. And that's just not sustainable. I'm happy to go through the numbers if you want to hear them.
Well, why don't you just tell us the amount in the trust now?
So there's if I round it, there's $740,000 in the perpetual care funds, and there's another $98,000 in the expendable funds. And I believe we haven't paid the town back any of the money we owe you, so. But if you round that out, obviously, easily $850,000, give or take, to round it.
Okay.
The income interest on the fund this year, there is some income interest, but overall, the portfolio's either losing money or flat. I can give you the 3-year history. I just had a conversation with New Hampshire Trust about this today. So it is throwing off income. It's throwing off the two funds together, the perpetual care funds and the expendable funds together are throwing off about $20,000. So as you can see, there's a little bit of a gap. If we treated the expendable funds as perpetual care funds, which I believe we should be doing, I'm not really quite sure how that amount of income got accrued in the past. I suspect it was those, some years when the portfolio was doing really well, but clearly in the current economy, portfolio is not going anywhere in the next handful of years.
Who is in taking care of your investments?
New Hampshire Trust has the $740,000 of the perpetual care funds, and the expendable care funds are at Merrimack.
Because I'm just thinking that you can get fixed returns of 5 or higher % now. So that's over 40,000 a year.
We could be getting perpetual care funds, and we will do that. Your portfolio will never go up. So yes, we can manage it for the short term. As you know, I'm new. I do not believe this is a discussion anybody's had about these funds in, I don't know when, but not recently. So yes, that is certainly one of the decisions that the trustees could be making, is to move it all into fixed income.
Or a portion.
Hmm?
Or a portion.
Won't make that much difference, Ken.
Okay. A different question I have is, when was the last time that the cemetery raised the fees?
Just recently,
Last year?
last year.
Last year. Okay.
Part of our income, more people are being cremated than are buying plots for single casket burials. I think it's just the way it is right now. That may change in the future, but for right now, we're looking at not quite the same income. The trade-off is then we don't have to worry so much about running out of land to develop, but we have been doing more cremains.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you guys have a sense of what amount would be a sustainable amount of money to pull from the perpetual care or the expendable fund?
So the way they're currently invested, it's $20,000. Ken did make a valid point about fixed income, which is robbing the future, in my opinion, but it's valid. And it's certainly legitimate. So at best, 30,000.
Okay.
Or we can spend the expendable funds down and kick the can down the road.
Right.
Well, if it was 30,000, that would be almost everything's, all of your 19, 20, 21, 22, you spent 34,000, but every year before that, you was only spending 22.
So what what this budget is what you guys spend. We have, on top of that, we've been paying for the vast majority of the lawn mowing plus the other expenses, the
This says you
trees
spent
and the,
22,000 in 2021 and 22,000 in 2020. And 33,589 in 2022.
So the lawn
Trust.
services are up to $37,000 next year, and we believe that we might not even get that number. So it's 37 plus trees. So we'll be spending 40,000. I mean, you make a valid point. I have no reason to believe that the other trustees will agree to changing any of our investment strategy. I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying it's not a conversation that I
mean, I'm not a professional in investment strategy, just, asking the question.
No, it's legitimate. I mean, I just had this conversation about my own portfolio with my own money managers who are not New Hampshire Trust.
well, and I think the other point I want to make for Jeff is that this is not all the money that we spend.
Right.
This is the money that,
Well, he's looking. So we're spending between 35 and $40,000 out of the perpetual care funds minimum. So yes, if we could increase that income, it would help in terms of a long-term strategy. So certainly on our horizon. It still, however, begs the question of that. It's not a sustainable model, even increasing the income from the perpetual care funds, unless we want to spend down anyway, yeah, unless we want to spend down the expendable funds over the next
What-
4 or 5 years.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's fine, Steve.
I don't see 2023. There's 2023 year to date, but it's not broken down by town, trust, landscaper for the other years. Do you guys have that information?
not with me, because I just noticed that wasn't
Okay.
there as well.
Okay.
So landscaping costs were consistently around the same amount, and then from 21 to 22 went up over 10 grand.
Yes, part of that's a contract increase and part of that is, yeah, it's all contract increase from the,
And how often do you rebid this? I don't know.
We've been doing it year to year right now. Every time it's gone out to bid, he's been way less than other folks. And part of that increase as well is that we added some spring cleanup.
so the good news is the cemeteries look great, or they look as good as they've looked in a long time. The bad news, the cost of services, as you are well aware.
It goes up everywhere.
Test, test. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Again, thank you.
You're welcome. I did just want to know too, we received about $75,000 in grants up here for extra patrols, speed patrols, OHRV patrols, tasers, and then coverage for overtime, because there's a deficit in overtime too, but a lot of that's covered by grant. I think it was $37,000.
So, Neil, just from an operational perspective, would that be in the wages to date for the 1031? Yeah,
That would under the specifically, which is would be under 151, which is the grant one, 2210 151 PD grant line. All the wages would be that one. We're working on how to separate, put them where we're supposed to, but separate them enough so it's a little clearer, so it's not mixed in.
because the 140 line is 20% over year to date through the end of October. It's line 140.
Yeah,
That be,
that was part of those one of the grants.
Yeah. I'm just trying to get it clear in my head.
That's so I know where I was.
Yeah.
Holy snap, right?
Yes, technically, yes. Actually, Eric can graduate from product. So very exciting. And very few farmers around. So,
Any other items you want to flag for us?
I think so. I do have one other thing that I'd like to speak to you about, but it's really all the questions are answered for the budget.
Very good.
So I'm excited to say, we applied for a grant, we did get it. It's a $125,000 grant, it's a COPS grant. I don't know if you guys have heard of that or not. The federal government will pay for 3 years for an officer, be hired, trained, and all that stuff. The town would have to put in 25% match for the 3 years, and they would have to agree to fund that position after the 3 years. But I have handouts I can give you some hints.
Yeah.
I do.
I'll make sure to the skits.
Someone wanted to speak again, but. So this is the grant. I'll add a bunch of things in there just to kind of key you in on a few things. So Neil did the math for me, so if we were to hire a new officer at $25.50 an hour, their salary would be about $53,000. If you add in Medicare, retirement, health, and all the benefits, that's an additional $33,000. And there's a grant. We look at about page 4. the benefits per year covered by this grant is 56,000, 58,000, 61,000 each respective year. So the total salary and benefits for all 3 years is about 176,000, with the federal government would take up 125,000 of that. So some of the benefits of, having an additional officer would be I'll have more officers on patrol. If one gets tied up with an accident, we still have other officers that can respond to other calls. As of right now, if that happens, we ask another town to come in and assist us to answer the call if we're tied up. So that would prevent another officer from another town and coming and taking that call. The state average is about 2.8 officers for every 1,000 residents. So if you do the math, that's about, we would be about 16 officers if we were at the state average, so we're under that. I did look up Brookline, New Hampshire, which I call our sister city because they have about the same amount of residents, maybe a little less. Their tax rate's a little less than ours. They have 8 full-time officers. We currently have 7. We haven't had another position since I've been here, at least. Neil can't remember the last time we had a position either. So the population has grown. I don't know how much since 2000, but I'm sure it's grown a little bit. And they pick it up, the federal government picks up the salary for 3 years. So that gives us time to, it doesn't hit us all at once, it gives us time that I can put in my budget and save up so that by the time it comes around where the town has to pick up the portion, we'd already be ready for that. I think a couple of caveats is I gotta tell them within 45 days, we just got this a week or 2 ago, so we have time. But there is a time cap on it. And
So I'm reading this right, Chief. So that if we go forward with this at the end of the 3-year period, we've got to retain this position for a minimum of 12 additional months.
yes,
I just don't know if that's legal for us to make that under our budgeting. Not saying yes or no, I don't know. Yeah, I wonder if there's like some non-appropriation part of that in here someplace. I don't know.
Would having another officer have reduced the overtime that wasn't covered by grants?
I believe it would, yes. We would still have the overtime for court. That wouldn't matter if I had another officer, but overtime for coverage, that would help in that aspect.
Would another officer require another vehicle?
No. It would give us a very good buffer to allow us, if we did lose somebody, to hire another person and not have it be so detrimental to the department. With the amount that we have now, losing one, I have to fill shifts if I lose an officer, whereas I think if we had that eighth person, if I lost one officer, then I wouldn't have to make overtime to cover shifts that they were covering. It'd be from 7 to 8 for some reason, it's just a huge buffer. It's so much more with the scheduling and training and all that stuff, and any vacancies that we may have. We're unique with the town because if I lose an officer, it takes me a year to get another one certified if they're not already certified. And
You expect that someone that you retain would be certified or would have to go through that process? Not gonna hold you to it.
no, and last time, when I put out the $10,000 sign bonus, we got 2 certified officers. Great. And then we got 1 non-certified, so, I would. The certified is obviously better, because they don't have to go through the academy and all that stuff, and, but with the grant too, they cover all that. So the town's really getting a 3-year certified officer by going through this grant. So.
Well, I don't know if anybody else has questions, but if not, my question would be, what's our process here? Do we have to say yea or nay now? You got 40, you said 45 days? Okay.
No, you don't.
I think probably by the time we, 2 weeks from now, when we finalize the budget, it would have to be added.
Okay.
That's soon enough for you too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it just says, including by executing required declaration and certification within 45 days from the award date.
And that was, it's like the second.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you don't take a closer look and then we have questions if you chat or. Well, thank you for putting this together.
Thank you. Thank you.
Animal.
Oh, yeah, animal.
Had no days.
Yeah. And just, yeah, it's status quo.
42.
This is actually offset by income from the village. Which is a trust. The library receives some of that money and the town for animal.
We call it health administration, but it's animal control.
It's the classic. Yes. Yeah. You have an extra?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
All right, thank you very much.
Next, we have ambulance, fire, and.
May I ask a question? I know this is a work.
Yeah.
Might be whatever. This day.
Planning on doing public comment at our next meeting, I believe. But if you had something that was specific, she kind of see that you wanted to ask right now, I think that's.
Well, should I identify myself?
Yeah, and we can't hear you on a lot. Sure.
Arnold Coda, 400 Blueville Road. With respect to the grant that the chief has just explained, I'm not in opposition to it. So if this board then approves it within that 45-day time period, what happens though then when we get to town meeting and it doesn't, the whole budget doesn't pass, and that would include that grant?
I think it would depend if there's some sort of language in there that gives us a reason to get out of the contract if we don't appropriate the funds that we've committed to appropriate. And I don't know the answer to that because we just got handed the packet.
Okay, well, then you may well have time to think about my question, because I don't expect that would happen, but I think we need to be aware and thinking about that. So
Yeah,
thank you for
well,
the opportunity to ask.
Yeah, thank you for that. We'll make a note. Good question. All right, Chief Yale, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.
It's a little different than what I normally do, but do you mind if I start with the fire? I think the majority of your questions will probably come on the ambulance budget.
That's fine.
So I tried to keep this as level as possible. I did have a couple of lines that had some, that did need some work. First one being the, fire department phones, which is, all the phones and fax lines in the stations, including the elevators, hotspots and, tablets for the apparatus. And these are actual costs from the bills, lined up for there, and we're just getting off a little bit. I did not increase it last year. Mutual aid and dispatch is the capillary mutual aid fire compact. That's 24 towns, chief coordinator. That's just split costs done by evaluation and population, and they went up 3.32% this year. Diesel and gasoline did go down a little bit. We dropped the price. Consulting with Dan from Superintendent of Public Works decided he uses the most amount of diesel in the town, and we brought that diesel price down $1 per gallon. And I believe my fire gear did go up slightly again too. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that is just basically the increase that actually has slowed down at this point. I was taking a couple per year on firefighting gear. That's the big ticket item in that line. Those are my changes for the fire department budget. Last year, when I presented my first year as the emergency management director, which there virtually hasn't been a budget for. All we had done was there was a $500 amount in there for generator maintenance at the high school. It was bought an emergency management grant. The past few years, I've had basically around $3,000 worth of service done to that generator. So would anticipate that that's probably going to continue, as that's an aging unit. Tommy Stremski, the contractor that put it in, takes care of all the things. They've had some issues with transfer switches and load testing. The new grounds coordinator at the high school or all the schools says he's much more versed in that and been doing some testing. So I think that's going to get used probably a little bit more, just mostly in load testing and everything once a year, so that we're sure that that unit will work properly and provide well when we need it. I've also gone through with a couple of new lines in the emergency management grant budget supplies. I put in for $500 to outfit the EOC, as well as trainings and conferences. Put that up from 500 to 1,000. That was something we threw in there last year. Although we overspent the bottom line there, where I'd like to do some tabletop exercises and test EOC where we've never really actually had it open. Although at any point in time, we could have to open that for any sort of situation. And maintenance, since we did get the EOC up and running, some of the systems, we have smart boards, TVs, hookups to Wi-Fi from the station, phones. A lot of that stuff is aging and needs some maintenance, and some of it might be beyond what we have for maintenance capabilities within the towns. A lot of it's complicated little low voltage systems, and I certainly don't understand them much. And whoops, and the last line in there was
$7,500 for grants. There's a lot of grant opportunities that have to do with emergency management. So most of them are 85% grant, 15% on the town.
And I had, yes, one question that relates to fire. I didn't know if you were gonna walk through the expendable trust requests for this year. Or if you're gonna do that a little bit later. The trust fund,
On the CIP.
the CIO,
Oh, yeah, I can, yeah.
wrong terminology. We don't do it now, just wanting you to do it at some point while you're up here.
Sure, why don't I finish the ambulance budget and we'll,
Well, I had a question on the emergency management.
Okay.
And that was just on the training one. The $500 hasn't been spent, and I think you said it was, other stuff was overspent. I didn't know if you.
that was the generator line, so and it got spent really early in the year. So I kind of put that training off, because I'd like to get somebody in and to do some stuff like that.
Yeah, and there was nothing budgeted there prior to last year.
Yeah,
We've actually been fairly busy emergency management wise, so Neil and I would be the new plan for hazard mitigation, that's been a grind.
Chief, what is the $7,500 of grant expense? What would that be spent on?
It could upgrade some equipment in the EOC. The actual base station in there only ever had one channel in it, which on our interoperability, we should be able to talk to. Most of our radios are capable of holding like 1,600 channels, and they're certainly not full, but if I pull up in my command car, I can talk to pretty much anybody in the state with the exception of Nashville or Manchester, because they're on a different band. So
Would any of that expense be usable for equipment or generator maintenance?
I don't think you could grant fund generator maintenance, but that not your question.
I think that is this question.
Yeah.
Most of the time most of the grants that I've ever seen, they don't fund maintenance, they would fund new equipment or new coverage of things.
And is the cost of the maintenance of the generator at the high school shared with the school district?
It is not. Might be a good topic for the two boards to talk about sometime, because I've tried to persuade them myself that at some point in time, I think they should probably take the expense of that over, and they kind of disagree with that.
Of course.
So that was purchased by us with an emergency management grant. Close to 15 years.
To go back to fire for a moment.
Sure.
Count 120 part-time call fire wages.
Yep.
In a year to date, that's so much below budget, and looking at the prior year's actual, again, it's significantly below 30,000. So, why are you sticking with 30,000 as a request this year?
Mainly because I can't predict what we're gonna get. At any point in time, I think I've said this to you before, but I could get a call on 202, they haul nuclear waste up there. There's all sorts of propane issues that come up and down and natural gas. The potential is just phenomenal. We, in town this year, we've had, 2 structure fires, and one of them was, what I consider a major, but those are generally our most labor intensive, calls that we do, but, and they've been down over the past couple of years. Our call force is, pretty low right now, something that we're trying to work on and build back up, but it's, been a real, it's definitely a work in progress, but it's not as easy as it used to be. Probably gonna have to do some advertising, and we've opened up some different means just because we used to only take people that live within the city, within the town limits of Hopkinton or Kentucky, and I've taken a few people that are over the line into Concord, and just because I used to get probably 2 or 3 folks a year that would join, and sometimes you'd lose 1 or 2, and it was always like we were building, but just not seeing that. Kind of one of the changes since COVID.
And count 612 replacement equipment turnout gear.
Yep.
Again, that's year to date is much lower than budgeted. Is that just timing?
Yeah, they actually have a new material coming out. I've been holding off on all my turnout gear because mid-February orders are gonna get, there's actually a new weave in the material. It's supposed to dissipate heat better than the stuff that we were using prior. They're just like everything else, they're always doing a lot of innovation and everything they can do with that, so. I've been waiting to put my order in, and I've already got an appointment for some fittings and stuff, so.
Neil, I'm wondering if that should be an item that could come up with.
Possibly.
I do the majority of my spending if I can towards the end of the year. I've lined up all my contracts to be due November, December.
We'll see.
Thanks. Go through the ambulance. We'll start right off with the part-time. This is my big ticket item for the year. I would like to add a position 5 days a week, 12 hours a day. Part-time during the day, that would be basically 60 hours a week. And at this point in time, I really don't have the staff to do this, so it's involve hiring and training. What I've done there is I've averaged out the paramedic and the AEMT wage for that 60 hours, 26 times a year, and or 52 hours a week, 52 weeks a year. And I would love to put that third person on, started tracking my missed calls, my second ambulance calls. We missed 7 from the first of the year till October 1st. We had already missed 70 calls altogether. 66 of those were ambulance calls, and that's if you look at the long and short of that would be, that's about a month's worth of my billing. Not to mention that we have contracts with 2 other communities as well as towns. So, and what would that allow daytime where I'm there during the day? That would allow that, would leave one probably back, or and then that would leave me and another person to do another ambulance call. Is it a perfect system? Probably not, but it doesn't involve another full-time position, and which would save on benefits that. And as far as the nighttime, I do end up having quite a few, but our busiest time is I'm virtually between 10 and 3. So
What does it mean to miss a second ambulance call?
It means, we have a second ambulance, but I don't have a lot of people during the day to be around, so, it gets toned and retoned, and then it would be dispatched to a different community.
Okay, thank you.
So what do you, go ahead.
I would ask, for the 60-hour week, is that one full-time and one part-time, or is it two part-time, or is it three?
It could be as many as 5 part-times. It wouldn't be any full-time, and it wouldn't involve any of the staff that. It could involve some of the part-time staff that we have now, but it wouldn't involve any of the full-time staff. They wouldn't be eligible for that position.
And none of the part-time will go to full-time.
If we had a position open. Right now, I'm very fortunate, as Chief Hennessy had said, we're at full staff. This is the first year since I've been here. I haven't hired a paramedic or an AEMT in the summertime. It's just, which the past 2 years I've had a sickness and a injury long-term for the summer, which is crippling. It's all, most of it was covered with overtime, and I have. Right now, the way we're designed with the 6 full-time people, I have 2 days that are part-time and per diem. So I have a full-time or a part-time paramedic from another fire department that he works every Monday for 3 weeks in a row, and then the 4th week he's in at his full-time job. And then Fridays I have an AEMT position open, and I'm filling those with part-time, and I'm doing it pretty well. The problem, I'd love to hire more, but if I don't have the work for them, they don't come around, they don't hang around. So it's a real delicate balance to keep those 2 positions filled with part-time and
Just because I'm gonna beat Ken to the punch once. Please, wouldn't this result in a reduced need for overtime for the ambulance?
yes, it could do some, like a sick vacancy or something like that. It wouldn't be so emergent to cover that position in the morning, so. Which a lot of those hours are forced, because we're at minimum staffing all the time. We need to run an ambulance. We don't have 2. So all we can do is respond first responder and then have somebody else transport.
And is this what we were sort of talking about earlier about the additional revenue from having? Yes.
Yeah, so I actually, I did this because of another line that I'm down, but so last year's, probably yelling into your microphone. Last year's tracking from Comstar billing company. They billed 719 calls. We put bills together for $955,007. The allowable total balance that they were allowed to bill was $476,582.14, and they collected $387,077.89, which is their collection rate there was 81.22%, which is really outstanding. So, and if you look at the tall totals, January is 64, February was 39, March was 56, April 60, May's 54. So you can see kind of the trend. Our heaviest month was August was 76, and September had 75. So it said with missing 66 ambulance calls in 10 months, I believe that we could probably add another month's worth of billing to that for this position.
How's the billing our calls, whatever's the easiest to answer? How's the first 10 months of this year?
I don't have that data. But the calls are running in the past, in 2021, we went from, in 2020, we broke 1,200 calls for the first time. In 2021, we went to 1,408 calls, I believe. And then last year was 1,403 calls. You don't generally see an 18% jump in this over time. when we started with the full-time staff that we have now, we were doing under 1,000 calls, so. So the same workload, I think this position is very warranted at this time, especially if you could ever look back and see the call fire department numbers and part-time people that we used to carry was a lot higher. So the workload, I kind of used to figure on 3 calls a day, and now it's more like 4 or 5.
And so I might have just misunderstood what you said.
Okay.
You were talking about 60 and 70 and 76 calls a month was the busiest month.
No, those are billable calls.
Thank you. My wife would say that.
So the call numbers that you see for the year are fire and EMS.
Chief, if we look at it from the resident's perspective,
Sure.
right now, if you can't answer a call, what's the average time for an ambulance from out of town to come to respond?
Yeah, so where this has been such a, where this has actually been such a, thing this year with not getting the second ambulance out on a regular basis, I've actually, on the first tone for a second ambulance, I'm dispatching that mutual aid ambulance, and if I have a partner to run with me during the day, I'll just cancel them, so that's gonna decrease by 8 minutes, but our general ambulance now would come from Henniker. This side of town would probably be ambulance 4 out of Concord, which is on Broadway, so if they're available.
So we're probably talking 10
The
minutes.
times, yeah, you're probably talking at least 10 minutes.
I assume that could be like challenging.
It is, and generally when that happens, I respond first responder if I'm not on the other call as well. So, I mean, start a CPR, I mean, have anaphylaxis calls, sick people. Sometimes I just am able to help somebody back into bed, whatever their need is, but I obviously can't transport them by myself.
You were talking about you missed 70 second ambulance calls so far this year. If you would have this additional position, how many of those 70 would you have been able to respond to? Because that's only a part of the day.
Right, like I said, the busiest part, I don't have the ability to track every hour of the day. I'm gonna try to do that for next year, set up the database a little bit different to catch some of that stuff, so I can have a better spreadsheet, but like I said, our busiest time for calls is between 10 and 3. Yep. And it's actually Monday through Friday, which is kind of hard to believe when people are generally not here.
And would you be able to give an estimate of the additional revenue that the department would generate if you had this position?
I would think probably like, the only way you could really do that, because the calls are a BLS call, which is a basic transport that they can really get much more than vitals and a ride to the hospital, is around $660, and then you go up to about $1,200 for an ALS, one ALS procedure, like say you got an IV or one medication, and then an ALS 2 call, which would be multiple medications and procedures. You're around just under $2,500 per run, plus the mileage at almost $17 a mile.
Trying to do some numbers in my head.
Yeah.
So that sounds
36,000 to 60.
Yeah. So that's about what we're collecting a month. It's about 34,000. February, our lowest month was 20,000. 42 in September of 2022 was our highest month for the year. That's collected money.
And would the amounts be charged Warner and Webster go up? Because budget is going up.
We'd make some of those calls that we miss are in Warner and Webster. So I mean, we could renegotiate contracts with them. We have contract that we could do that at any point in time,
But yes. Because the budget goes up. What their build is based on the budget minus the revenue allocated by the 3-year average number of homes.
I'm supportive of what you're proposing, and I'm thinking of trying, I get to facilitate with the budget committee. So what I would like with the range of what the additional revenue would be getting. Some concept of this. If you could, provide them.
okay, I'll work on that and I'll get it to you.
So
Before you end your
if
session.
you respond to a call, straight up like EMS, because we don't have enough people to actually do transport. And another town has to come in and they transport the person, do you get reimbursed like this Comstar collect information, and do you get reimbursed for that EMS visit, or is it just the?
Then other community gets the billing. Because they transport, so that's why you're seeing, numbers like 64, 39, 56, because if we come to your house and just check you out or lift you up and put you back into bed, that's not a billable call. Fix your diabetes, anything to that effect where you don't get transported.
How many calls do you get like that? Just a percentage.
Actually, I have 2 addresses in Warner last year. We did over 100 runs to those 2 addresses. And we transported, one of them we transported more, but the one we did the majority to, we transported twice, and that was the end of. Thanks for that.
You said 100 calls to
2 addresses.
2 addresses in Warner?
Yep.
So who's saying that's not a billable event? Is it Comstar?
They're not billable if we don't transport them, that's.
I'm asking this
That's-
because, we can have a conversation also, I don't want to hog the time, but, there's a lot of conversations happening at the state level about EMS and ambulance, and there's discussion about treat no transport. And the fact that it is actually, I don't know if Medicare and Medicaid cover it, but commercial insurance does cover it, but there's a lot of misunderstanding, I'd say, among ambulance providers as to whether or not it is a billable event. So that's just something to,
Yeah,
if you think about 100 visits with no transport.
yeah, the only place I can take patients, I can't take them to an urgent care or anything else, all we can do is take them to a hospital with an emergency department.
Right, but if you are making visits without transport, and it actually is something you can bill for, that might be worth looking into.
Yeah, well, those runs get submitted, in Comstar,
Start saying they're not.
they are
That's
active,
right.
are Tempsus, which is our, like, if you were in the hospital setting, it would be Epic, but that's where they pull the billable runs from.
Got it, okay.
Just because I like to be that guy. Can we terminate our agreement with Warner? What's the period? And would this staffing be required if we didn't have Warner as a customer?
I think you'd lose them if you do that,
Lose who?
the staffing. You have a staff that doesn't want to do less. And if you can't supply, a staff with the kind of calls and the amount of calls that, keep them busy, it's a long shift. And the shared expenses, I think would be, it would be catastrophic to the kind of care that the folks in Hopkinton are accustomed to and supportive of.
Can you give us a distribution of calls between the communities?
Yeah, I gave it to me today. I don't have it with me, but yes, I can. The one is fairly close to us. And I hate to quote it, but
Just trying to keep it in.
yeah, no, it exists. So
We did the contract, which was quite a while ago now, we did look at that. And it was much less expensive for us because of the fixed costs to do that, but it's probably a good time to look at that again. Just to have those numbers.
How old is the contract? 10 years before me. Does it change based on equipment? Because I know we've replaced at least one. And
So the contract includes the operating budget and the capital costs, so yes.
I think Stephen might.
oh yeah, but I didn't want to interrupt the flow. I have another question about this. Okay. Chief, can you walk us through the CIP? Sure. Request. What order you want to do? Good. Okay, this is small. Oh, it's a little bit. Do you have any particular items that you're more interested in? Well, I mean, there's 400,000 for a new ambulance and 500,000 for a new tanker. Just wanted to see if that was still the need and what the timeline was going to be to get those vehicles if you do that. Yeah, the ambulance, we actually signed a contract and ordered it in June of 2022. They're about a 2-year wait. That competitive bid? It's done through the consortium, the HVAC, so that way. The price increases have been unbelievable in fire apparatus and ambulances over the years, in the last few years anyways. This ambulance went up significantly from the last one. So when are you expecting to get that? Mid next summer. Okay. And then it's good for 6 years. It'll be frontline for until the next one comes. So 2033. Yeah. Or 2028, yes. Right. So a little history on the ambulances that we have now. Ambulance 1, which is a 2015, has 142,000 miles on it. Those are hard miles. Yeah. It's sitting there now with sensors broken that I have ordered, and it went down last week, and I should have them tomorrow and fixed. Ambulance 2, the 2019, has 80,000 miles on it, and our frontline rig keeps it uses a lot of tires, but we had some different brands before that. The ambulance we got rid of to get rid of this ambulance had 3 engines in the course of its life. So we're using the same manufacturer. They're identical to each other, which makes them nice to work out of if you jump from one to another. Everything's in the same spot. So when you get the replacement for number 1, that'll become frontline one in the 2019. Okay. Yeah, secondary status. So what we try to do with those is I run the backup one frontline for a week every month, and that way we can, it goes through its course of everybody runs it, gets checked, everything's tested, so you don't find out that the stretcher's not working correctly, or the batteries are all getting used and charged. And kind of the difference with fire apparatus that maybe something you keep for, a lot of this stuff, the ambulance is not necessarily, but the fire apparatus, a lot of it gets changed out every 20 to 30 years. So, I mean, one of my greatest things is that piece of apparatus should really be very useful the day you get rid of it. So there's a lot of forethought and emphasis on equipment, and sometimes things need to be upgraded. Some of the apparatus doesn't get a ton of miles on it, but it gets age and then the maintenance costs and the breakdowns. So, and then the tanker that we had 500,000 for originally, that got brought. That was one of my
visits last year with the CIP committee that, that went up significantly. I believe it was 380,000 prior to COVID when we put it in there, and the price increases. 8% doesn't sound that bad, but when you're talking that kind of money and they're doing it multiple times a year, those prices go crazy. So that's really what that's replacing 2 trucks with 1 carrying the same amount of water.
Do you know when this has arrived? 25 question mark, do you have a sense of when?
I don't know, yeah, I asked them if if it was worth the conversation with this board last year to see if we could get it ordered. The ambulance, I signed the contract with, after consulting with Neil, then, it really didn't have a lot. They figured they could sell the ambulance without a problem and let me out of the contract. It was more than just a order, but the fire truck was not the same case. Yeah. The truck that it would be replacing is a 1994 Ford L or F8000. It's actually a really good truck. The problem with it is they don't make the model anymore, and you can't even get parts for it. A lot of the Ford parts of that, the body manufacturer was Valley Fire Equipment. It's plastic. They're out of business, and plastic fire trucks were a great innovation, but nobody's really kept up with them. So they're really difficult to, if the body got damaged, it would probably take some real work to actually get somebody that could repair that. It's 1/2-inch plastic, it's bolted. It was actually the first plastic wet side tanker in New Hampshire. So. Yep.
Highway department wants that truck. Yeah. Or a water truck.
And the other one is virtually a forestry tanker. It doesn't really travel a lot. It was an old highway truck. We got a body built for it, and the idea of having the body built was could go from truck to truck. But our needs have kind of changed over the years for that, and our staffing, I think it would be much more versatile for us as a department to be able to pull into a driveway with 2 trucks with 4,000 gallons of water. That would give us the amount of water that if we can't save the house, we're gonna be there for the long hauls with numerous communities and a full-on operation. Instead of, we pull in with just the engine, that leaves us at 1,000 gallons of water, which at 200 gallons a minute through our small cells goes pretty quick.
Any other CIP ones you want to highlight? Those are obviously the big ticket.
Well, the ladder truck's coming. That's been there for a long time. 2029, $1.5 million. Concord just ordered a new tower truck, which is very similar. Their truck does not have a pump. This truck does. And it came in at 2.3 million. It's, you add 8% to $1 million. It's got to stop somewhere. So that $1.5 million at this point is probably going to buy a really good used truck.
That's where we got the first one.
Yeah, I mean, the town of Hopkinton has never owned a brand new aerial device. We have a need for one, but whether we have a need for a brand new one, I don't. I think it would be justifiable, the prices.
So you were saying for the tanker 2 has not yet been ordered. If that were included in the budget and approved at town meeting, then if they ordered it, how long will it?
How long can we wait? If I ordered a custom truck, we're looking at 18 to 24 months. I have been looking around a little bit, and there are some other demo trucks. I haven't found one yet that I'm sold on, but there is some demo trucks available right now that would be ready for immediate delivery.
How long would that
30 years. And then there's a lot of stuff, that's, pushed out back up to like 2037's the next engine. And just to put that into perspective, this is an estimate of $1,033,030, but I've talked to a couple of communities that have ordered. I had somebody that came in the truck that we approved a couple of years ago, the engine 2 was $535,000 a demo truck. And Canterbury came over to look at it because it was similar to what they wanted. They actually loved the truck and ordered one, and I believe it was $835,000 just a couple of years later. So
How's that engine doing?
engine 1,
Is it okay?
yeah. Yeah.
Just thinking it has to make it to 2027.
That's pretty standard.
Okay.
Engine, yeah.
Okay.
So that truck's down here at the Hopkinton station along with Tanker 3, the International. So it was actually in Kentucky today run front line. So we had some work done on engine 2.
I have one other question about ambulance. I just hung up on this 100 calls to Warner. So thinking about the wear and tear on our ambulances, if you do 50 calls to one house in Warner, Comstar says it's not available, that didn't transport. Does Warner, does anyone pick up the cost of, who covers those costs? Just
Well, the budget split up because we kind of split the cost between calls and
okay. So Warner would have to account for the fact that.
yeah, so they have a 3-year average that we bill
Okay.
them on. So not just Hopkinton calls that are going up, but Warner and Webster calls are both going up as well. So
Okay.
this has been a really good relationship with Warner and Webster and sharing this ambulance. I mean, I think the town of Hopkinton, we obviously have a bigger share in it. We've always done more calls. But the kind of coverage that we are all grown accustomed to and have is just, it's really unbelievable for a community of 6,000 people to have, 24/7 paramedic coverage with some of the stuff that happens in the back of that ambulance. It's really remarkable. I'm glad that my family is guarded by that.
Y'all can agree with that. All right, I know we're behind for the band, but anything else you want to find for us? It's pretty thorough.
But I'm always there if you have any more questions.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
And we were ahead of schedule this whole time. So- You are.
So you're gonna have to come back next week.
Thank you. We already covered revenues, so we can let the night is on first, the last one.
Where would you like me to start?
Okay.
So we've got propane under the general government buildings, so I've gone up then.
Page 26.
Page 4 for me, so. Building repairs has gone down. Great budgeted for stuff for this year and not the issues are went down. And budget reflects that.
4311, move on.
Yeah.
Telephone has gone up. Dues, conferences, training mileage has gone up. Give my guys more trainings.
And are you fully staffed?
I am fully staffed. Thank you. Congratulations. Yeah. Very happy. I had no morning air left before. I was getting very nervous. Start working on that, baby. I was getting very nervous. We are technically down anyway. We're down one hire truck. So we've picked up that route. So it's between three guys, it's more time to work that route. It's very hard to find hire guys. And when our current hired cloud driver gets done, we're gonna have to look at hiring a couple guys. And getting more vehicles. I don't think we're gonna fill it. No one wants to do this anymore. Including me some days. Also the safety equipment and boot line has gone up. Just the cost of everything has gone up.
Dan, if you could step back to the full-time wages, about 15. Is that increase because in last year's budget, we recognized the number of vacancies, so we reduced the budget?
I would defer to me and Kelly on that.
Yes.
They feel that.
Okay. That's very suspect.
Any questions on 4311 administration side? $4312 highway and streets. Shimming and paving increases the 5% added on. I will tell you that the paving that we did this year was paid entirely out of the encumbered funds. And Kelly is now working on the shimming that we did. Gould Hill, Tyler Road, Cast Hill, Lower Putney, Dolly Road, we did ourselves, and that's coming out of the 2020 bond. So any money that we have left over this year, which is almost the entire shimming and paving line, I'd like to get encumbered to go towards Gould Hill for next year. Gould Hill, Weaver Brothers said they would start Gould Hill.
Right.
Sorry, Iron Hill.
I was gonna ask the question.
Yeah,
Arnold was getting excited.
I just took care of Arnold, so he's good for a couple of years. Briar Hill, excuse me. Weaver Brothers are gonna start and do some of the road this year, and they were really trying to figure out what they were gonna do, because they are shorthanded as well. And I said, why don't we just wait until next year where you can allot us a specific time, and we'll get as much done as we possibly can for next year. So that's the plan. Cost impact of putting it off a year? It all depends on fuel prices. Fuel prices dictate the cost of asphalt. Evidently, impact the cost of anyone doing the road.
This asphalt recently gone then flat or gone down?
It follows the fuel. So we are locked in at a certain rate. So if fuel prices or cost of AC, the oil that's used to make hot top goes down, you'll actually pay less than.
We'll see.
It's contracted. It just follows it, and they will give you a reimbursement for trying to according.
Dan, if you're seeking to encumber whatever's left in the chain paving line, the end of this year, to go to Briar Hill Road. Would you anticipate that if we put in 556,000 budget for next year for Shane and Cleveland, you'll end up having to cover a significant amount again?
I will spend that money. It'll either go towards, Briar Hill, or we'll do some more shimming and paving and possibly gypsy.
Was it a staffing issue then this year that prevented?
Yes, I didn't get full staff until middle September and October, somewhere around there. So. We're down 2 guys, on top of guys taking their vacation time.
Yeah.
Moving on. Equipment repairs and maintenance. I noticed this line getting drained rather rapidly this year. We had a lot of breakdowns. It happens even with the newer equipment. It's the way it goes. Sometimes you get through with only a couple, and other times you get slammed with numerous. What we do is very, very hard on equipment. We have a very good maintenance program, but it's just the nature of the beast. Highway equipment replacement. I bumped this up. We have a lot of old chainsaws that I like to replace. A lot of other older equipment. I just went, Chief Hennessy got me onto an auction site. And I just purchased a new hot top roller, a small one for us. And I just had to do a turn and burn down in Pennsylvania to go get it. But we saved a lot of money by doing that. So a $10,000 machine, and the cost I did was $5,400. So it was just me and myself, and left at midnight and got back 6 o'clock that night.
Thank you for that.
It is. So good news. Gasoline, oil, diesel fuel, etc. has gone down $20,000. Salt has also gone down. That price is locked into April. So
this, calculation is based on $5 a gallon for diesel.
that's $5 a gallon for diesel, that's $4 a gallon for gasoline, and oils and grease, etc., etc.
But I think all the other departments are using $4 a gallon for diesel. Is that right, Neil?
No gasoline.
Right, I think for gas, I think diesel. I'll go through and check all of these to make sure we're consistent all the way through.
Yes. Reduce some prices of rate. Yeah. That was a problem. Their COVID went way up all along.
So that's it on the 4312 account. The next is the transfer station. We're not touching that tonight. Buildings and grounds. Leases and contracts went up $1,500. Or so,
Sorry, 46.
that went up $1,500 that's just to cover the cost. Everyone's going up in the prices. That's all I had for increases in buildings and grounds. Sewer. Sewer is dead flat. Talked to Sam. Sam is still here, doing as much as he can. And we both agreed to leave it the way it is, let the new person come in and get kind of acclimated, and we can adjust next year if we need to.
And we're hoping for a new person.
Yeah, we had one, but yeah. Oh, excuse me, the community well is the same thing. Sam, I actually think that one was totally fine. Didn't see a need for an increase that he could speak. The sewer was, I'm looking at the wrong. What page you got on this?
Sewer, you got 4. If we want to include Steve.
Have any idea of when the solar array will be providing, power?
I think we should get it built first. I don't know.
So on the 21st, which is next week, bids are due. And so if you're leaving 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be recommending a vendor. So it looks like hopefully they'll start in the spring. And it will probably take a year, so we're probably looking at the summer of 25.
And not for Dan, but I guess for you, we regularly talk about whether the sewer users should be paying more of the capital costs.
Absolutely.
We agree there. And in terms of what we've been providing, are they paying anything towards the capital costs?
Are they? Trying to think where we ended up.
But the revenues and the expenditures are exactly the same. Revenues. It's often.
Yes, if you look under the capital improvement program, under sludge removal sewer equipment, you'll see what's currently projected to be paid by users of the capital costs. $35,000.
It's not the TIP district,
That has nothing to do with the TIP district.
it's when it's coincidence that that's 35,000. I'm looking at the
Yeah, I don't know what.
line,
There's no TIP district, anything anywhere. I don't know what you're talking about.
line 193
Yeah, I don't see it.
of page 56.
That's funny. It's like,
Oh, at the end.
yeah,
The note.
yeah.
Yeah, that's totally separate. Those are other projects funded separately. So those don't appear anywhere else. So. It's line 116. In the capital. It's the user fees.
So it's just coincidence that 35,000 shows up.
They're not really.
Don't have a lot of these. Yeah,
Page 2 of the.
my 2 spreadsheets are. Keep looking. Page 3 starts at 133, then it's at 201. Yeah. That's what I have.
The page.
Well, I've got 2 spreadsheets, but they're the same. Yeah. Two copies, it says something.
Does somebody else have another 2 pages that are the same? All right.
I have the correct,
Well, that's the important.
yes, I have the correct, page.
Here's the one that's, I mean, the rest of us just for.
I just, we'll make you copies of all 4 pages, so
Okay,
we're
thank you.
different, sorry about that. Unless you have different.
Yeah, I think Jeff and I are the same. I forget, when we talked a bunch about road funding, we said we were gonna increase the shimming and paving, and then my memory was we were gonna put money aside for the building, so we didn't have to bond it. Am I misremembering that?
So what I put in here now is an additional 400,000. Which is on the page.
Okay, maybe that's what it is. Okay. Well, see class through. Yeah, yeah.
So by that.
We don't care. That's right.
I put in largely to talk about it because so that.
So this is gonna be like a maintenance reserve trust?
Right,
Okay.
right, so you wouldn't have to bond in the future that, and as the bonds got paid off, the amount going into capital reserve could go up to pay for it, so you wouldn't have to get additional bonds.
Because on the pages that Jeff and I have, there's a line 168 for Road River Building Project, and there's no money allocated there, which is why I asked the question. So I was like, where did that? Yeah.
So there's 400
Okay, yep.
in the, let me.
No, it's fine. Well, you know,
But I will get to those.
just explaining why I was like. So you said 400,000?
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is a random number I took for discussion purposes.
Yeah.
Because I knew a million would fly.
Down the road, we're looking at Broad Cove. It's a culvert, but it's actually classified as a bridge. It's been entered into the state bridge aid program. Back when I started, I gave the paper to them, sent it in. It's kind of in limbo, I believe, and that is now on the red list. So,
Is that on the paid part?
yes,
How old is that?
1980, something about the same age as Stickney Hill was. We're around the same year.
On the red list, what's that mean?
So the state's got it on their list, and it's different degrees in the red list. Right now, it's in the lowest state. When it gets to the highest, then they can shut the bridge down. Just hopefully they give us more warning than they did with Stickney. Stickney went on the red list, and then like 2 years later, they shut it down, which is crazy. Did not give us time to really prepare.
What's the ballpark on that?
Broad Cove, I would estimate that, well, in say 7 to 10 years, we're looking at probably 500,000 to 800,000, somewhere in there. And then I anticipate at any time East Pennacook Road, just before the transfer station, that's also a metal culvert. That's technically a bridge, and that's also been tried to enter into the state bridge aid program. So I anticipate that any point.
So what's your sort of reaction to the $400,000 figure?
I think it's great. Okay. I think it's smart.
Okay, and is that, I mean, do you have the capacity now to use that money, and or would this one be one of the things you contract out?
I cannot rebuild roads anymore.
Okay.
After we did Pine Street and the paved hill on Boundary up to the water plant, I just can't. The guys, you know, some days I'm working with 3 guys.
Yeah.
And I can't build a road with 3 guys. And not to mention all the regular maintenance suffers tremendously. Like road grading, stuff like that has to be put off. We need the grader and the manpower on the road that we're building. So the dirt roads get pretty bad, so then we get to stop rebuilding the road, go take care of that, and then you get trees down, washouts, ditching, cleaning culverts. It's just, it's crazy. I would love to do it because we do save a lot of money, right? But I just can't.
Sounds like your staff would have to be almost double in size.
Yes.
Yeah. So if that passed at town meeting and you had 400,000, do you have a contractor that you think would be able to come in and take some of these projects off?
You'd kind of have to plan ahead, like for the following year. Like we have, Weaver Brothers set up to get started on Briar Hill.
Yeah.
And we have a design. We're kind of not doing the engineering side. They don't want to build roads. I don't want to build roads. I don't believe there's any wetland impacts that we need to worry about. So we'll just move forward with building those roads, that section. Okay.
So that actually could go into Briar Hill this year, because that's the big construction, which we haven't totally done.
That's really good news.
Anything else? Good. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time.
Sorry you were late.
All good. Thanks,
Next
Dan.
year you have to go first. Right now.
Yeah.
Here.
A little more for me. Everybody else.
And- Okay, so next week we're talking about transportation.
Which is perfect.
Okay,
And the Webster Select Board will be on this, so
okay,
at 6:30, so they'll gather and beyond it.
We'll also be talking about solid waste.
Transfer stations, solid waste, all of
Okay.
those.
looks like, well,
Those are obvious to do.
You ready? We finished with them?
We did really good.
yeah.
Points, I think.
We'll revisit it another time.
Not complaining, that's.
Anything else on the budget for tonight? So we have one other item. I was hoping that we might have Dan and Chief Hennessy here for this, but it's okay. I brought this up with Neil because I witnessed something and then also had several people reach out to me about this. But last week, there was a massive 18-wheeler that got stuck trying to make the turn off of 103 into Gold Hill Road. And I happened to be standing in my yard with one of my dogs and saw the entire thing happen. And the driver of the truck got stuck, kind of trying to make the turn. And then as he was backing out, I don't know what happened, but he went across Route 103. And the Hopkinton PD had to come and he was blocking the entire road for like probably an hour. But I'd say like a week before that, another huge truck had come up and apparently made the turn. I think it was a slightly smaller truck and it took out, there's 3 mailboxes. One of them is ours, as you come off of 103 into Gold Hill, took out 3 mailboxes completely, broke them off the granite stand and like pushed the granite stand. And we sort of fixed it a little bit, but anyway, that happened a week prior. And then I would say I have personally seen like every year, there's at least a handful of 18-wheelers trying to make that turn, who then have to back out and they go down 103 and then go right on Indian Ridge and out and around and come up the back of Gold Hill, which is steep and narrow, but doesn't have the same angles. Anyway, so the fact that we had 2 of these things happen, and we were really lucky last week that the truck didn't flip. I thought he was backing across 103 and like the back of the truck went into this field that's across 103 that has quite a dip. And it was scary to witness, I have to say, and traffic was backed up for a while. So anyway, I talked a bit with Neil about like, you know, what could potentially be done to try to stop trucks that like physically cannot make that turn. And one of the things that I think we could do is put a sign up for a weight limit. I don't know if there's other things we could do to try to discourage. I mean, it was scary to see because, I mean, if that truck flipped, it would have been a lot worse, but also there's not a lot of space there. And like, mailboxes got taken out, but there's kids and adults and dogs and lots of traffic coming really fast from the other direction. And so just these huge trucks that are not like, like as a matter of physics cannot make that turn. If there's a way to discourage it or control it, it seems like, that's a discussion we might want to have. So for a weight limit, I believe we'd have to have a public hearing on that. And I Googled the statute quickly, but I did not go back and revisit it.
Sorry, there's an attachment I didn't.
Okay. So anyway.
Do you know where the truck is going?
It was going, I believe, I didn't verify, but I believe it was going to the orchard. And so I don't know, I think that might be the only business on Gold Hill, but maybe a conversation about alerting trucks, whether it's a house being built or whether it's the orchard or whoever, to have whoever has the truck coming to them, make sure that it can actually make that turn, and if not, instruct them to either have a smaller truck or go out and around and come up the back of the road. So anyway, I don't know if there's other places in town where this happens. I just happened to actually be standing right there when it happened, so. Wanted to bring that up. So Neil, I don't know if you looked at the statute, you said you were married statute, but is it something we have to have a? Okay, and when I scanned it, it looks like you can have a weight limit and then exceptions can be made. So like, for example, if the orchard needed, you know, something to exceed the weight limit, then I think they just contact you.
Dan.
Dan, okay.
Yeah. Which is what we do in the spring when we put the weight limits in place, right?
I mean, I'm in favor of us doing the public hearing. I think we should probably ask the orchard how many deliveries they're getting. Because if we're gonna set up an exception for the orchard and they're the only truck traffic.
They're not the only.
They're not, okay, that's what I would, like, I'd like to know from them, you know, how much.
Well, they're the only, I think they're the only like business that's operating on Gold Hill. But the amount of construction, I mean, Arnold, I'm sure you've witnessed it too. It's like the amount of construction is a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot, and there's more going in too.
Yeah,
So we're seeing it with, I mean, some weeks it is, because I work from home many days, it is constant, and it's alarming how fast they come up, and some of them don't get stuck, but like, it just makes me wonder, you know, if that road can handle the level of weight and like equipment that's going up and down that corner. So anyway, that's that. If anyone else has questions or.
The trucks regularly go onto the grass or onto the property?
Yes. So our neighbors who I talk to at length, because they also share a mailbox with us, we're on the same stand. They have had their lawn and they have a little like stone wall against the road, and that has been affected. And then they have a tree right there where this most recent truck like was jammed kind of under it. And when he did get out, I went and looked at the tree after, and I saw the chunk that had come off and there was metal in the tree. So like, you know, there's property damage there. And then we've had, you know, the edge of our yard and our stone wall in the past.
I was just wondering if some boulders were put onto your property, would that?
I mean, I don't know. Well, there's also the town that has a triangle right there. I think the town owns it. I think our neighbors maintain it, but it's a little triangle, and the truck most recently like went right down that and tore up all the grass and stuff. But it was, I mean.
We can't put boulders in our radius.
No,
I'm just worried about the like property damage, and
Wait,
we're worried about like the time of our police department having to deal with that, and then just like the danger to people trying to come on 103 and it was at like 8 in the morning too. So, you know, the yard stuff's a little bit of a nuisance, but I guess that's what you get for being on a corner, but it's more the like danger and then just like the wear and tear on our town roads. So.
Sabrina, may I offer a thought or two on this also?
Yes, if you don't mind speaking to the mic.
Arnold Cody, 400 Blue Hill Road. What Sabrina witnessed is not anything that is any longer unusual. And when a truck is one of these 18-wheelers, when it is able to make that turn, it keeps on going. And it makes a very wide turn here, and it then takes up the entire width of the road right around that curve. I'm sure that I'm not the only person on the road who has had the experience of coming down toward 103, coming around that curve and meeting one of these trucks. If we're fortunate, we don't end up having a conversation with the truck. But apart from that, even if we were not to have the problem with the trucks, that's a really tough turn to make. And I've also wondered whether or not, I assume the town owns that little grass triangle that you have described. And I've often wondered whether or not we might consider taking out a section of that grass and widening that turn when you're coming up 103 from the village. Making the turn onto Gould Hill Road if you're coming up 103 out of Kentucky is not a problem. But even for an automobile, it's really tough, especially in the wintertime, to come up and make that turn. So if a portion of that grass triangle were removed, graded and paved, then at least automobiles have a greater amount of turning radius and lane, which I think would make it a lot easier for people coming up around there. It would probably help truck drivers too, but I'm really not concerned about them because I think that I agree, something needs to be done to redirect them in some fashion. So in any event, if my thought has any merit, then I'll let you all take it from there, discuss it with whomever. But I have had that thought for quite some time, and I think that would really ease automobile traffic coming around that curve.
And I would say in general, every time we redo roads, we do take out those triangles, like the Briar Hill Triangle will be coming out as part of the one at Pentecost Road. Will come out as part of the reconstructed there.
Would it be a 90-degree?
Almost do
So
it.
that's an interesting one. I mean, we don't have to unpack it now, but like, as it is now, you can just keep floating on up off of 103. You're not stopping to make a right-hand turn because you're waiting for oncoming traffic or anything. And so I just wonder, that's an interesting one because people go 60, and if you're stopped trying to it's scary enough trying to make a left-hand turn like Gold Hill, you're stopped there. But anyway, it's a weird, and then you do go right around and there's a corner there that people take way too fast. That's kind of blind. There's a bunch of blind driveways. It's kind of a early spot. So anyway, thank you for listening to this tale of the truck that got stuck. But if we, I think if we have a public hearing, we could chat with the Orchard folks too to make them aware.
To schedule a public hearing.
If others are.
I'm in favor of doing the public hearing. I want us to just double check and make sure we have to do a public hearing. But either way, we should put it on the agenda and get some input from the Orchard.
Yeah, and I guess if we don't have to do a public hearing, it is just a matter of having a chat with them, and then I don't know, the construction issues are ongoing, and I don't know what you do about that. If they need certain equipment, I guess they need certain equipment, but I do wonder about redirecting people to come up with that. So maybe we can double check on the public hearing piece.
I'll pull that stuff.
Okay. All right, so unless anyone has anything else for other. I think that's it for our public hearing, our public meeting, and we have 2 non-publics. So once we go into non-public, we will adjourn and will not conduct any other business. So thank you to anyone who joined us online and those who were here in person and everyone who's working very hard on the budgets. And I make a motion that we go into non-public in RSA 91A32A personnel and also D leasehold property. All right, so can we all vote, Stephen?
Yes.
Ken? Yes.